Please.
Yes, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Pancho Avery,
Here.
Richard Norton, Jose Gonzalez,
Present.
Javier Martinez,
Present.
Louis Laveau,
Present.
Richard Pedales, Javier Compián,
Present.
Guillermo Cavazos, Osvaldo Lara. For the record, Mr. Chairman, you do have quorum.
All right, I believe Mr. Norton has asked to be excused.
That is correct.
I need a motion to excuse him.
No, so moved.
Second.
I have a motion and a second to excuse Mr. Norton from the meeting today as he is traveling. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. All right, do you have a chance to read over the minutes?
Let's see. Over there.
I'd move to approve the minutes of the last meeting, Mr. Chair.
Second.
I have a motion and a second to accept the minutes as presented. Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. All right, let's move on to the first order of business. We
Mr.
have a
Chairman.
request. Yes,
At this time, I would like to recognize our new Planning and Zoning Director, Mr. Kirby Snideman.
oh, thank you. Hey, welcome. Welcome here. Thank you very much for coming. You'll get to know all of us in time. One thing I did want to bring up, Fernando, that we were discussing before, is that the last few times we've approached, we've had things come up in front of the board here regarding signs.
Yes, sir.
And I think, for one, and I think some of the other members here don't quite understand why and how we end up being the policing unit for signs. We understand that what is in the regulations is that the ordinance, that if it gets rejected by the city manager's office, it comes to us. But it seems to me like there's still a vague piece there somewhere as to why we have authority, and if he rejects it, he doesn't, then the next order of business is to send it to us, that we really don't have authority. So moving forward, I'd like to once again approach that and verify that we do have the proper authority to do this. And then B, that if it is rejected, if we do have something on the agenda, that we do have the rejection letter from the city manager's office where it has been rejected.
Yes, sir.
All right? All right, let the record reflect that Mr. Perales and Mr. Cavazos have now joined the meeting. Okay, our first order of business is a request submitted by Juan Medellin to authorize an exception to the literal interpretation of the Laredo Land Development Code, Section 24-77, entitled Dimensional Standards, by granting a variance to the setback requirement on Lot 7, Block 1709, Eastern Division, located at 702 North New York Avenue. Is there anybody here to speak on behalf there? Go ahead, sir. I need a motion to open the public hearing.
So moved.
I have a motion to open the public hearing. Second?
Second.
I have a motion and a second to open the public hearing. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. All right, sir, go ahead and approach the podium there. Your time.
Yes, sir. My name is Ruben Garza. I'm the property owner of 702 North New York. And I lived there all my life, just practically since we moved from Chicago to Laredo, me and my wife and our daughter. And laws have changed a lot. And I'm retired, my wife's about to retire. I was not aware of any permits. A structure was there already. The carport was there. So I decided to go make a little addition to the house so it'll be different, since we cannot afford to live anyplace else. We paid our taxes, we paid our bills. All I'm asking you is to, for forgiveness. I was not aware, I didn't know of the laws. Since I look all around Laredo, people guilty, doing, and I am very sorry. That's all I can say. I've already invested a lot of money. I don't have any more.
I'm understanding that the setback you're looking for is a rear setback, a variance to the rear setback of 20 feet to 7 feet 6 inches, but that I'm also understanding that you would like to put a duplex unit on this property.
Oh, it's an addition, sir. First off, it started that side of the property was front, and in reality, rear. Because I'm at the dead end, I'm the last property at the dead end, and it was Guatemala Street, the city closest, so now it's the creek. From there to the point where the house is, it's approximately 75 feet. That's front. How can this be front on the right-hand side when front is Cortez? There's another property there. So the understanding is, I thought that was weird. And the carport was in, I didn't go over, I didn't go past. Just where the carport is, closed it up and put a room on top. That's all I did. But I was not aware that there was front. And that's what all started, that since this front should be 40 feet from the wall to the house. But my front is 702 North New York. And our argument was that the front should be Guatemala, not even New York. There's only 2 lots in the whole block. Mine is the one at the dead end. Okay, now they built a house on the other end, on Cortez in New York. Their front is Cortez, but then they put the front New York.
So do you front on New York?
Yes, sir.
Fernando, you aware of this?
Yes, sir.
So
Let me
the
go
front
ahead and-
is not on New York, or?
Let me just put this up real quick. You have this on your packet.
There it is.
All right, here we go. This is the property in question, okay? In reality, he is a corner lot. He's on Guatemala and New York. However, this part of Guatemala
Was closed off.
is closed off, okay? In our land development code book, it states that the narrow part of the lot is the front of the lot. So this technically is the front of the lot. This will be the rear. Even though he has an address of 702 North New York, the front is still on Guatemala.
Explain to me how you would have an address of 702 New York if the front of the property is supposed to be on Guatemala.
This part of Guatemala, it's closed off.
No, I understand that, but, I mean.
Since this,
the-
I have no idea who issued him the address, right? But he says he's been there living for
See,
many, many
Well,
years.
about the
Someone
property-
had issued him an address on New
What?
York, and the same thing for this property right here.
Okay, so you live on the adjacent property number 6?
He lives on number 7.
number 7.
Oh, okay. All right, so,
He lives on number 7. And he stated that he wasn't aware that he needed a permit. However, we have someone from the building department who did cite him and issued several stop work orders.
I'm not getting that.
and sir, you continued to build even though you had the stoppage?
I went to try to get a permit, they denied me one. The only thing they told me that they would issue me is a demolition permit. And nobody would listen to me, nobody would even talk to me. And I leave, and this young lady that cited me called me up on the phone. They said that I need to talk to some lady there that would issue the permits. I said, well, she was there. She was standing there with the individual that I was talking to about the permit. And I saw her giving him signs like, no, no.
You know, I understand what you're saying, but my bottom line question is, did you continue to do work after you had received a stoppage?
Correct. This is an older picture I was able to find. This is the original carport that was there, right? And which you have it in your packet. He continued working after he was advised to stop. And this is what it looks like now.
Okay, board members, anybody have a question? Any questions?
Well, I think I wanted to clarify that he's not building a duplex. He's going to just expand his
It's an
one.
addition. It's an addition to the house.
Yeah, so you're not going to rent out part of it. You're going to live in all of it.
Oh, sir.
And
So
you're-
why is it, excuse me, why is it then that we're concerned with that it is a mixed residential use, a duplex?
No, we're not concerned with the duplex.
Oh, okay.
Okay. The zoning for this property is R3, which requires the setbacks of 20 in the front and 20 in the rear.
And obviously, it's not 20 feet on the front and 20 feet in the rear.
Correct. And he was advised, and we have the inspector who issued the stop work order here, in case you wanted to speak with her.
At what stage was the construction when they stopped the work? What stage of the construction was here?
Yeah, you can go to the podium. I'll check it.
Well, Mr. Chair, assuming that he had got a permit, they would have found out that he's actually non-conforming when he starts applying for the permit.
correct.
Yeah, because he's only
This
7
stop
point.
work order was issued on March of 2018, and this is what it looked like at the time.
That's the first stop work order at that point?
And
He was advised,
had you gone to apply for a permit prior to that point,
Yes, sir. And I was denied.
and you were denied?
All I'm asking you is for forgiveness, and I'm sorry, but there was too much money already invested in the property right there. And like I explained to you guys, I'm sorry, that things have changed in the years. When I came here to Laredo, anybody will give you a ride to wherever you want to go. You'll be walking down the street and people will stop saying, where are you going? To the real pharmacy store. They'll give you a ride. Nowadays, things have changed a lot. Right now, I mean, I'm a retired law enforcement officer.
Well, I'm sorry, sir, but, you know, ordinances are put into place for a reason.
Yes, I'm asking you, I'm asking the board for, please, forgive me. I was not aware. I already have too much money involved in this. It is not a house for rent, it's my residence. Me and my wife.
Did he apply for a permit before starting anything? And that's what I'm aware of.
He said he did, and it was denied.
But that was prior to anything, or was that after the work stopped?
that was after the workshop.
Sir, the structure was there. I didn't know I needed a permit. The structure was there already. I didn't
But
start it from the bottom
At
up.
that point, did they explain to him that he could come here and ask for a variance?
I'm not sure if he was told that back in March when he was,
No, I wasn't told. Thing is that the neighbor was building a fence, and I mean, everybody around the neighborhood was trying to beautify the neighborhood, make something decent out of the neighborhood, whatever we can. And all I'm asking is for forgiveness. I was not aware.
Well, you know, I totally understand your point, but unfortunately, the road, you know, the road to hell is paved with good intentions. And, you know, you have all the great, best intentions of beautifying the area or whatever, but there is a process that must be followed,
Yes.
and that's an ordinance. And the ordinance is in place for a reason. And, you know, I don't have any more questions. Does anybody have any more questions or comments? I need a motion to close the public hearing.
That's a move.
I have a motion,
Second.
and a second to close the public hearing. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. All right, gentlemen, so what do we do here?
Well, I think we're in a very tough spot because on the one hand, he showed blatant disregard for the city ordinances, and by giving him the variance, I feel like we're kind of taking away some of the teeth that our building department and planning has.
That's correct.
So I'm reluctant, but at the same time, he does have something built already, and I feel like if we ask him to demolish a structure, it would be,
I agree with you, and I'd like to add that it doesn't make any sense to me why the street, if it's closed, would be what the Musina and the front actually New York, yeah. It doesn't make any sense to me, and it sounds to me like if that was the case, maybe the variance on the sides would be what we need to take into account.
It wouldn't work out.
I know.
Would it be different?
Yes, it would be.
it would be, but then his front yard would
But he
be,
would still be encroaching.
Then he would still be encroaching, he'd be encroaching in the front and in the rear.
yeah, because the front
If he's-
is 20.
Yes.
If the front was to be New York, he would be encroaching in the front approximately 10 feet and approximately, let me see,
But if the front is, the front is New York. In other words, that's what you're telling me, right?
if the front was with New York,
But it is.
well,
Yeah.
But his
that's
le-
the address.
His legal address is New York.
Yes, but
Okay.
legally, technically, the front is on Guatemala,
What they were saying.
What do you mean legally?
because the narrow part of the lot is the
Okay,
front of the lot.
Right, so basically, he's using an address that he shouldn't be using.
Correct.
Okay. Board member Cavazos, I do agree that we'd be kind of taking teeth out of what we have here, but I also agree with Mr. Perales here that why is the street closed? And that kind of puts us in a different situation here. I don't know, I know what would be my first bet, would be, my first reaction would be to deny, because it's a blatant disregard after you were told not to proceed, you had a stop order, you went ahead and disregarded that and continued. But I also take into consideration the other facts, so I don't know, we need to move on this, so what do we want to do? Any other discussion?
I'm gonna make a motion to approve reluctantly because the second part of what I was gonna say is that I feel like asking him to tear that whole addition down is.
But what are we varying though now? I'm not sure what we're
It's a-
varying
It's a
anymore.
setback
The setback.
variance.
Just a setback
For a structure that's already built.
for a setback that's already, for a structure that's already built.
Because
We're
technically
granting
the
him-
front is going to be
we're-
what
we're
was
granting
saying.
him the variance.
I understand the front and the sides.
We're granting the variance.
Your motion is?
You have,
I'll make a motion to approve the variance as requested.
do we have a second?
I second it.
I have a motion, a second to approve the variance as presented. Any discussion? Aye.
Well, I have a question along the lines, if we deny this, would he have to tear down those improvements?
He would have to get a permit to.
A demolition permit.
Demolition permit and deny, and destroy it, and
Is there a-
remove it.
Is there a fine when they proceed with building after?
Yes, we do have some, I think
I'm
we
not
put
sure
some
if he
teeth
went
in
to
that
municipal
last year.
court. He might have gone to municipal court. Do you know if he went to municipal court?
I have a court date.
It's in we had teeth put into it last year, where after a certain period of time, And then it actually goes from municipal court, there's an actual suit filed to demolish it in court, in district court. So anyway, I have a motion and a second. Any further?
To remind the board that there are very well-defined rules on when a board can grant a variance. And it's always on 3 conditions. The first condition is that the zoning regulations applicable to the property do not allow for a reasonable use. So the first question asked for this is, does the current zoning on that property not allow him to have a reasonable use? The second is the hardship for which the variance is requested is unique to the property and not general to the area in which the property is located. In other words, there's something unique about this property that has damaged him in some way that he couldn't use his property the way he wanted to, or the way that is legally allowed. And the third allowance is the variance will not alter the character of the area adjacent to the property, will not impair the use of the adjacent conforming property, and will not impair the purpose of the regulations to the zoning district in which the property is located. So Texas state statute requires that one of these three things be met in order for you to grant that variance. If you don't, if you just feel sorry for him, so that's the reason that you're granting, you're being arbitrary and capricious. What that does is it makes it so that other rulings that you have can be called into question because you granted somebody who clearly violated the regulations, and also, even when they got a stop work order, continued to build, and you allowed them. What this does is strips you the ability in the future to restrict or to require somebody to be in compliance because you were arbitrary and capricious this time. You open yourself up to litigation in those future situations.
All right, but a question. Whose burden of proof is it I think it was the 3 different statute, or the 3 different items you mentioned there, whose interpretation? Because to be quite honest with you, it could be interpreted that since the street is closed,
That's a uniqueness.
he doesn't have the best use of that property.
Right,
So I think that's subject to board interpretation.
yes, you do have room for,
Yes,
a lot
we
of
do.
these are very specific and require you to examine them. But with that one in specific, the hardship for which the variance is requested is unique to the property and not general to the area in which this property is located. What you're saying is because his address is on the side of the home instead of the front of the home, you're saying that did not allow him to use the property in a reasonable way. The property was a single-family residence, and he's been using it as such. He's given testimony that he wanted to add an addition. Now, the way it is currently, he had a buildable area with the front. He just didn't build it to the buildable area. He didn't add the extension where he could have. He had the extension where he wanted to. So he wasn't not allowed to add an extension. He could have added an addition to his home. What he didn't do is come into the city and find out what his buildable area is and then get a permit to make sure it's done safely and correctly. Instead, he just did it how he wanted to. If ruling in favor because he did it how he wanted to, and even though he got a stop work order, you're still allowing him to move forward with this, that's setting a dangerous precedent, and it's stripping you of the ability in the future to restrict somebody who, again, got a stop work order and didn't comply with that.
All right, thank you. I'm going to go ahead and call the question. We have a motion and a second to approve the variance as presented. All those in favor?
Aye.
Raise your hand, please. All those, there's 2. All those against? I'm sorry, sir. Motion denied. Thank you very much for bringing it. All right, moving on to the next. request submitted by Luis Jose Calderon to authorize an exception to the literal interpretation of the Laredo Land Development Code, Section 24-77, entitled Dimensional Standards, by granting a variance to the lot area requirements on the south two-thirds of Lot 5, Block 929, Western Division, located at 3616 Salinas Avenue. Anybody here to speak on behalf? Go ahead and approach the podium there, sir. I need a motion to open the public hearing.
So moved.
I have a motion and a second to open the public hearing. All those in favor? Any opposed? Motion carries. Go ahead, sir.
Good afternoon, gentlemen. Thank you for allowing me to be here today. My name is Jose Calderon. My reason to be here is we're trying to build a property, a duplex exactly, on 3616 Salinas. We're a construction company. We built more than 50 homes here in Laredo. We do have the experience, and we know that this lot here that we have, we are a little bit short on the square footage that the city is requiring for us to build a duplex in that area. In that lot specific, we're exactly 214 feet short.
225.
225? Okay, I'm sorry. 225 feet short of the 6,000 that the city requires for a duplex. We are good with the setbacks. Our architect designed and said we are good with all the setbacks. We have submitted the permit for building, but right now we're just requesting this variance from you all. Hopefully, we can get something working so we can start building this property.
So it's basically a 25 square foot variance that you're looking for.
225.
225.
225. Excuse me,
Square feet.
225.
Otherwise, all the setbacks are okay and everything?
That is correct.
Parking spaces, we're good?
It meets all the
And
requirements.
it's R3?
Yes, sir.
And the design that you have could not be reduced by 225 square feet?
No, it's the size of the lot.
Yes, we can reduce.
Oh,
the-
that's right, no.
It's the size of the
It's the lot area.
It's a lot area.
Oh, that's right.
And obviously, this was one of those old-time,
It's one of the older lots.
yeah, where it got partitioned by somebody before.
Yeah, it's the older lots in the
Yeah.
Western Division, which measure either 46 by 125.
And the lot is being used right now for what?
Nothing, it's vacant.
Vacant lot?
Yes. And we're not affecting the character of the neighborhood. We're not encroaching to any neighbors. I mean, everything's perfect, just that policy that the city has.
In the picture, I see a bunch of cars parked on there. Why are all these cars parked on there?
Oh, you have like an aerial picture?
Yes.
I think they were, before, they were storing some cars there, but
It's
nothing
vacant
was done. It's vacant right now.
Does it meet the parking requirements?
Yes, it does.
Oh, so here's a picture of it cleaned up.
Oh, yeah. Any other questions from the board? Okay, I need a motion to close the public hearing.
So moved.
I have a motion, and a second to close the public hearing. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. All right.
We're looking at increasing the variance at, from the 6,000, right? That's what we're talking about?
Yeah.
From 6,000 to 5,775.
And what was the, Morales, what did you say was the issue with this lots here on this side? I mean, what was the point?
It doesn't meet the lot area requirements. In the R3 zoning, the lot area requirements are 6,000 square feet. This lot measures 5,775.
Lot is smaller,
Yes, it's a smaller lot area.
right?
But it does not affect any of the building structures that we're going to put there, the setbacks or anything. It's just the rule that the city has for that, building a duplex.
It seems to me like, because of the configuration of that lot, that it's beyond people's control.
It is like has been said, one of the older lots, and it's the 2/3 of one original lot.
Right.
Mr. Chairman, may I make a comment? You asked earlier about the sign ordinance, and you were wondering if Board of Adjustment would be the right place for that to go, if you have the authority to rule on that, recognizing that there's a process, a good process, and wondering if that's the best process for how signs get approved. This is a good example of a process. What he's asking for is not a variance because there's something unique about his property. What he's asking for is for you to change the rules. Now, I'm not saying anything whether those rules are good or not, even though that he's close, but that decision really should be made by City Council, and this request really should be going to City Council to change the ordinance to lower that limit to 4,800 so that he would be able to qualify, or maybe 4,500. That would be the correct way to do this, because what you're doing is you're not interpreting anything. You're not judging whether there's some unique hardship to this property, which is what this board is all about, the Board of Adjustment. What will, in effect, be deciding if you were to approve this is that you don't agree with the City Council's decision on that ordinance, whatever council put that in place, and you want to lower it for this property.
I
not for other
understand, and to be quite honest with you, I agree with what you're saying because of the fact that we've had things like this come to us, what in essence, I don't think this is a variance on a setback, which is really what we deal with.
Right, and in the future, I'll work with Ms. Morales to make sure that we steer applicants in the right. Any applicant is able to request these, but they should know that this is not the place for it. So we'll do a better job in the future of trying to guide residents and applicants to the right process, because the correct process for this should be going to Planning Commission and City Council for the applicant to ask for an ordinance change to lower the requirements. And that way we're not spending the Board of Adjustment's time on things that don't belong here.
Okay, but, quite honestly, is the City Council going to think, okay, well, we've got to address on an issue-by-issue basis? Or are they going to buck it back to us? But really, I don't see that we have the authority to do that.
That's exactly right. As far as what the City Council hears and doesn't hear, they have to hear it if the applicant requests it. They'll have to give him a hearing. So they can't choose not to hear him. If he makes application to the Planning Commission, City Council, they'll have to make a decision on that. And that's the right channel for it to go, because when you're changing the rules, that's a legislative decision. It's not a judicial decision, which is what is.
I accept, I agree with you.
But can I add also?
It'll make our life much simpler moving forward.
And it's the correct way to do it. But I also want to add that the city is looking at overhauling the city codes and ordinances over the next year. We're in the process of hiring a consultant to redo the entire code, so that in many cases, what we're going to do is lower these standards and make it easier for the inner city to densify and revitalize. So what I'm saying in effect is, I think this is a good project where there's a property that's less valued and we want to get it redeveloped. Likely it's going to have to require a little greater density for that to get done. And we want our inner city to be vibrant and have people there. That's good. It's just this is not the right place to make that decision.
Understood.
So we don't have the authority to grant this?
Well,
is that right?
No, you can do what, I'm not telling you what you can do. I'm telling you what is recommended that you do, the process you follow correctly.
I agree with him because this comes up every other month almost.
And it's coming up because
and it keeps coming to us. If we stop.
I agree with you.
And then it goes to council, they'll realize that, in other words, we're putting out the fire for City Council instead of them knowing.
That having said that, are we in agreement here on this board then that my suggestion would be to table the issue, send it back? We're not going to deny, but we're not going to approve. Send it back and let legal, or you, the planning and zoning, go through legal and get it interpreted. You get the city attorney to tell us, okay, no, you don't have the authority to do that. Because I honestly, I feel that there are things that have come to us that really we do not have the jurisdiction to rule on. Basically signs, this also being one. So I would like to take the recommendation there and move forward with that.
And what we would do in this case, we will refund any money that the applicant spent going through for Board of Adjustment, or apply that directly if he wants to go immediately to Planning Commission and City Council to change the rules. Although he wouldn't have to do that if he just waits. I don't know what your timeline is, but like I said, the city is looking at that, and we want to get input from people who want to develop.
But we, as the board here, have got to start somewhere.
Exactly, and this shouldn't be before the board, and we're going to work together to make sure in the future we filter these better and make it much clearer to the applicant where their request should be going, if they want to be heard, where the appropriate location they should go. And for rule changes, it should not be Board of Adjustment.
So in other words, you're saying
Just
that
a
for
minute,
city
yes.
council,
Go ahead.
Sir, excuse me. I feel that I'm in between an issue between the city and councils and chamber, and I'm taking the fault for it. If this has been done before.
Nobody is
No,
saying.
I know I'm not being denied, but, I mean, I've been waiting for this so long that,
Well,
I understand.
But
there's a process.
unfortunately,
I understand there's a process.
even if we were to approve it, did we have the authority to approve it? That is the question.
Yes, I got you.
And
I
that's
understand.
why we, as a board here, would like a further interpretation. We're not denying, like I told
I
you, we're not
understand.
denying nor are we approving, just that we're sending it back for further clarification.
Yes, sir. But what I'm asking is if it has been approved before in other properties.
Well, it has been.
Mr. Chair, are you making a motion to table? Because on a motion to table, there is no discussion.
I haven't made a motion to discuss, I'm just discussing.
Okay, well, I'm just wondering.
It's my first time here, so I'm sorry. I don't know how it works. I'm just asking a question. That's all.
So, what do we do? Or what would you like to do?
I move we approve.
Okay, I have a motion to approve. Is there a second?
I'd like to second that. You know, I believe based on the situation, you know, that there's no clarification as far as the guidelines from the city, you know, as far as what happens when this type of situation takes place, you know. And we're given the burden of, well, I don't know if it's a burden or not, but the responsibility of addressing this kind of issues. And what do we do? I mean, you know, wait until, like you said, you know, wait for a period of time to, I mean, that's, I don't understand that.
Any further discussion? I have a motion and a second to approve as presented this variance request. All those in favor by show of hands, please.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, motion carries. Go ahead, sir, you got it.
Appreciate it.
Is there anything else to come before the board?
I think that's it.
That's it. Meeting adjourned.